And yes, just for those knowledge, it is being recorded. So if anyone's not interested in having their settings recorded, you can just take your camera off as well, and that's completely fine. So first and foremost, just want to acknowledge that we're facilitating this webinar from the lands of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, in terms of where I'm sitting here in central Sydney, but also want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we all are working today, wherever that may be, and that the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people participating in this webinar. And I want to pay my respects to elders past, present and future, and celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal peoples and their ongoing cultures, connections to lands and waters of Australia. So today, what we're doing is we're operating a collaborative industry forum. So the transport sector continues to be a major contributor to the Australian economy. And it's something that really upholds the things that we're quite lucky to have in terms of our high quality Australian way of life. So without transport, those essential items such as fresh food, household staples, we're not as widely available across our vast land. So given its significance, it's really pleasing to know that there's so much being done in an attempt to protect those that help work within this sector. So initiatives right back dating to the National Road Safety Strategy, or more recent formations of governing bodies like the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator. Yeah, they're really positive steps. Yet I guess with those commitments being made, we are still having the sector identified as a national priority by Safe Work Australia due to the nature of the higher risk work and the associated fatality rates. So this priority status means has remained protracted due to a noted challenge of workforce demographics, ever evolving workplace and regulatory practices, and highly variable working arrangements. So the opportunity does still continue to present itself to us as an industry, that we can continue to come together to better solve for some of those challenges in connection to work health and safety, and for that more sustainable workforce engagement. So I think we can all agree that there is a big opportunity here, and one that we don't want to miss if we possibly can. So I want to acknowledge that we've got some fabulous speakers today. I'm very blessed to have great people that are experts in their field, and they're directly operating and tackling the known challenges across the transport sector. So from the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator, we have Amanda Caper. From Healthy Heads and Trucks and Sheds, we have Naomi Frudenfelder. Apologies, Naomi, if I got the last name wrong. And then lastly, Lindsay's Transport, and from Nat Road Australia, we have Melissa Strong. So each of these individuals bring a wealth of knowledge to the table, and would really like to thank them in advance for their time and contribution to this session. Without question, this session is only made possible by them being so generous with both their time and knowledge. So thank you, ladies. Yeah, looking forward to getting into it. So first cab off the rank is going to be Amanda from the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator. So Amanda operates as the Manager of Safety Policy and Research. At the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator, Amanda oversees a program of research, monitoring and implementation of measures designed to improve the safety of Australia's heavy vehicle industry, as well as monitoring and evaluating the implementation and ongoing effectiveness of the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator's policies and procedures. So today, Amanda's going to be walking us through the recent industry survey. So that was the industry safety survey done in 2020, and showing how safety is being implemented across the heavy vehicle transport activities and across different industry groups. So, Amanda, I'll throw to you. That's enough for me for the minute, and thanks for taking us through all that.
Thanks very much, Alistair, and welcome everybody. It's a good opportunity for me to take you through the survey we conducted last year. The results are obviously still relevant, and they're things we're working towards. There's areas for focus, and there's areas for improvement across different industry sectors. But what I'm going to do is give you a short overview of why we conducted the survey, who we surveyed, then what we found, and then I'll talk to you about what we're doing about some of the results. Just so you know also, this I've given a similar presentation last year, so you'll find most of these slides sitting on our website, and I'll give you the address at the end as well. And some of the other materials I'll talk about are all available on the NHVR website as well. So you've got ways and means of refreshing, and you can reach out to me too. So if you could just change the slide, please. Next slide. Oh, and another one, and another one. Thank you. So the reason we conducted the survey and the reason I'm talking to you about it is it's because we really need to share our findings with our partners. Now, partners are other people working in the industry, the people who are actually driving heavy vehicles, the transport operators, and other government departments. And we want to share our results and partner with people to reach our goals, because our goals are joint goals. So we wanted to benchmark safety performance. And we also wanted to look at some other topics that we had that are current programs of work, such as whether we're providing the right guidance material and what is the level of understanding of vehicle safety technologies in the industry as well. So we can help identify where we need to assist people to take up technologies or to understand them and which ones are appropriate. Next slide, please. So about the survey, just to let you know, it was emailed to all heavy vehicle registration holders on our databases, and it was anonymous, conducted by an independent survey provider, so that we couldn't see individual responses. So that was really important to us and really important to be independent. So we had 4,000 people participate from all different roles within organisations and all around the country. So there's just some of the highlights there. There's a large number of owner-drivers participated, a large number of people who do local transport work, people who've been in the industry for more than 20 years were a high respondent rate, and a lot of managers and drivers, and a lot of Victorians responded. I'm not sure why, that's just how it worked out. But it gave us a really good cross-section of the country and the industry and roles. Next slide, please. Also, we looked at business size in this. We looked at headcount. We also looked at the number of vehicles being operated and in the business. And what we found was that most of the people who answered the survey were in the smaller owner-driver or smaller business sizes. And most people had sort of between 2 to 10 vehicles in their operation. We also had owner-drivers, quite a lot of owner-drivers with one vehicle or 1 to 5 vehicles. Next slide, please. And again, so what we found, the thing we're really looking for is what is the level of implementation of safety management systems in businesses? Because we believe it's one of the best ways to manage hazards and risks for improved safety. So we found that 62% of the industry say they have a basic safety management system in place. We assessed basic management system as having key elements of business management, risk management, assurance, and promotion and training within their business. So they were the set of questions just listed there that helped us determine this percentage. So if you had something or said yes to all of those, then we determined that you had a basic safety management system in the business. So we found 62% have a safety management system. If you were in a heavy vehicle accreditation scheme, it came up to 66%. People who run performance-based standards vehicles, if you're not sure what that is, I can go into that a bit later. Or certainly you can look that up on our website, but they're vehicles that are assessed on their performance for specific tasks. And they have a number of operating conditions and loading conditions to make sure they're operated safely. So 67% there. What we found a bit unusual was that 50% or 56% of businesses in the larger category, the 100 to 200 vehicles, had a safety management system, which is a lot lower than for everybody else. We're not really sure why that is. We do need to look into that. It could be maybe a business which is growing, has not necessarily invested yet in improving or increasing their safety management capability in their safety team. It could be that it's harder to grow and distribute the information throughout the business or keep up to date. So that is something we're looking into, understanding why a larger business might not be as well set up with their safety management. So this is the purpose of the results, actually. It's not just to prove that things are going well, it's certainly to highlight areas where we think there might be an issue. Next slide, please. This is just what an SMS looks like. So this is on our website as well. But basically it covers having safety policies and documentation in place, having key people who work in safety in the organisation, understanding the interactions you have with other parties, who's responsible for what, identifying your risks, monitoring them, incident reporting, investigating incidents, change management, trying to keep improving, and making sure that you have a positive safety culture, training and education for staff. So they're the key elements of a safety management system. And this is important because it does form the basis of many other programs out there, and especially assurance schemes and things like that. Next page, please. What we did find was that most people are good at day-to-day operational safety management. They really are. They inspect the vehicles, incidents are reported, drivers feel safe, and those sorts of things. I've highlighted some of those on the left-hand side, very high percentages of positive responses. What we found people were not so good at implementing was forward thinking, strategic or forward planning. So attending safety training, reporting near misses. Reporting a near miss is just as important as reporting an incident, so that you can investigate why that near miss occurred, what's led to it, how can you mitigate that for next time. Having personal health checkups, that's another forward planning activity. And making sure that everybody understands their roles and responsibilities within the business. So they're areas that we saw people need to work on, and areas that we need to be able to provide more guidance. Next slide, please. I mentioned earlier that people in a heavy vehicle accreditation scheme tended to have a slightly higher level of implementation. We looked at all the schemes that, or some key schemes that we're aware of. National Heavy Vehicle Accreditation Scheme that's run by the Regulator, the Western Australian Heavy Vehicle Accreditation Scheme, Truck Safe, which is an industry scheme, and Crane Safe, industry scheme as well. Most people participate in one scheme only. Some are in multiple schemes for different purposes. But we found that regardless of whether you're in a regulatory scheme or an industry scheme, they had high levels of implementation of safety management. So that was a really positive outcome for us, and it meant that we do need to have these schemes in place, and we do need to keep promoting them and encouraging people to join the schemes. So that was a really positive outcome. 40% of the participants said they were in a scheme. Next slide, please. I hope I'm not rushing through this too quickly for you, but certainly you can ask me questions later if I have skipped something that was important. We looked at drivers who subcontract for another business, and what we found here was that 2/3 said that safety standards and requirements were in their contracts, but only half said that their safety performance was monitored. So we thought that was, it's all very well to put the requirements in, but we really do need to be evaluating our actual safety performance so that we can always improve. Of those people who were in an accreditation scheme, it was a little different. 90% said they had safety requirements in contracts, and 80% said that their safety performance was monitored. So there's something that we can learn there about how we might be able to implement that better. Next slide, please. Owner drivers. We're really interested in owner drivers because the key with safety management systems, which I probably should have mentioned earlier, is that they are scalable. So we're not really looking for people to have a big safety management manual on the shelf. What we're really looking for is people to have defined their responsibilities within their business. And if you're a small business, your safety policy will be a much smaller document or a chart or a something on the wall that lets everybody know what your safety policy is. You might have some key procedures and processes, and you might have some key processes for reporting incidents or dealing with incidents and understanding them better. So there are a number of ways in a scalable way that you can have safety management in your business if you're a small business. So we're really interested in what owner drivers are doing. What we did find is that they do the operational day-to-day safety work, and they had a pretty high score on having personal health checkups, which we thought was really important. The one thing that was low for owner drivers was having relevant safety training for their roles. And safety training does encompass a lot of things. We didn't go into it in the survey in a lot of detail. For example, toolbox talks, as opposed to maybe spending time at conferences. So there are many ways to have safety training in the role that is not really onerous. And there's a lot of material available. And one thing we are doing is creating some more useful and practical materials that can be adopted by owner drivers. Next slide, please. Safety technologies. We're really interested in understanding the level of awareness of different safety technologies, as well as willingness to take them up. So there is a project we have, which is all about the introduction of more safety technologies and increasing the number of people using safety technologies. You know, we have decided, or we believe that it's there's greater safety advantages in looking into the right technologies for your business and for your vehicles than there is in necessarily having lots of targets about having younger vehicles, for example, newer vehicles. Newer vehicles are great, but also the uptake of technologies is a fantastic way for people to make their business safer too. There are differences amongst different industry sectors. And that makes sense because different industry sectors require different types of technologies for their business, depending on where they're driving, what they're doing. I do have some more information on that on some fact sheets, which I can make available to you later as well, as to which industries had which safety technologies. Next slide, please. SMS materials. So the NHBR provides a set of SMS guidance materials. This includes things like fact sheets, quick guides, checklists, templates, and worked examples. So, for example, if you don't know how to do a risk management assessment, we've got a worked example that you can use. Just put your own logo on our template, and away you go. So we're really trying to target smaller businesses in helping them create the key parts of their safety management system. We found that a lot of people were not aware of the products we offer. So what we are doing this year is we're revamping our webpage. So that'll come out late in September, revamping the webpage so it's easier to get to our materials. We'll be doing some promotional webinars as well, specifically on a journey through how to create an SMS from scratch. For people who, for example, have no SMS, people who have something in place, and people who want to really improve what they've already got. So most people who had used our tools said they were useful, and that was a really positive result. But the 34% who said they were aware of them, and that was a concern for us. So we really are going to try to raise awareness of what we have so that it can be more valuable to people. Next slide, please. We do have the safety-specific sector-specific survey results. They're infographic sheets. They're all PDFs, A4 page. They're pretty useful if you want to have a look at your industry and see how it's performing against each of the others. And all of those can be found on our website. The address is just there, nhbr.gov.au/SMS, and look for industry safety survey, and all the results are there, and you can print those out and even talk about them in your business as well. Or if you're consulting with others, talk to them about where you see there might be some needs for improvement. Each one also includes, as I mentioned before, the safety technologies of interest, where we found that there was a high level of knowledge or a low level of knowledge, and that was some valuable information as well. Next slide, please. What's next? Oh, yes. So in summary, implementation of SMS could be higher. It's at 60-something%, but we're going to set some targets to improve that. Awareness was a bit low. So again, we're looking at ways to improve that with promotions and improving the way you access it on our website. The key issue or the key finding for us was that communication and relevant safety training occurs, but management and staff differ on how well it's implemented. So management often said that training occurs, but staff, particularly drivers, said they didn't think it did. So there was a disconnect there that we are trying to address with producing more toolbox talk materials and things like that. Last year, we released a number of COVID toolbox talk materials to assist people in having those conversations about safety and just another awareness piece. We have an area on our website as well that pulls together the different border restrictions for heavy vehicle operations, and we put that all on the top and the front and centre on our website, because the state-by-state information can be difficult if you're trying to go across borders. So we've pulled it all in one place. So we've set improvement targets. We've got specific focus areas, some of which I've mentioned. going to deliver some enhancements around September, followed up some other webinars. And we're working with a trusted industry representative group to test out some of our products and some more practical tools for industry. And I think, is there another page? One more page? Oh, that's it. That's just giving you some of the web addresses, but it's all there. If you go to nhvr.gov.au SMS, you can find all the information I've spoken about today. And if you want to have a closer look at some of those slides, they're all there on the website as well with that data. So thank you very much. That was the content I wanted to cover today.
Thank you, Amanda. I think one of my questions in follow-up was going to be, how does the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator be given an opportunity to have a bigger ripple or impact in the industry? But I think you've called it out. It's just getting people across the website. You continue to update materials. So I think the invitation's there for people to go and access that and obviously to reach out to you if they have any sort of subsequent questions. Just a reminder to everyone, if there are questions, please do use the chat function. We're keen to hear from you. We want to make sure that your questions are being addressed. Not too often that you get this kind of capability available to answer those questions. So definitely encourage you to reach out. I might just get you to flick over, please. And thank you, Amanda, very, very much for what you've put forward there. So next, we're going to be having a chat with Naomi from Healthy Heads and Trucks and Sheds. So Naomi's the Chief Executive Officer there and leads the team in terms of those that are responsible to a new major industry-driven initiative that is focused on delivering better mental health outcomes in road transport and logistics industries. The overall objective of the foundation is to deliver a single national mental health plan for the sector, which is a great aspiration and one that I'm very confident is being well achieved to date. I know from personal experience, I've heard nothing but good things about the Healthy Heads and Sheds initiative. So well done, Naomi, and your team. So today you're going to talk to us primarily about mental health and what's going on in the transport and logistics space, the development and the launch of Healthy Heads and Trucks and Sheds and where you're off to, and what the action is that's going to be taken to deliver mental health. So my first question is probably just, can you tell us a little bit more about Healthy Heads and Trucks and Sheds and how it is that you're positively seeking to influence things for us?
Yes, of course. So Healthy Heads was established and launched in August last year. So we've been around for almost 12 months now, and I joined in January this year. So I've been there for about 6 months. But basically, Healthy Heads was established by industry for industry. So it's a registered not-for-profit that was set up by industry in response to the poor state of mental health across the sector. A lot of this is informed by the Superfriend Thriving Workplace report. So they do Superfriend does a survey every year across different sectors, and postal, trucking and warehousing is ranked 19 out of 19 sectors for mental health and for being, a thriving workplace. And so I think the reason Healthy Heads was established was in response to these statistics, and it really came as a push at the CEO level. So Paul Graham, our chairman from Woolworths, very much sort of led the charge, and there was a voluntary steering committee that went for about 2 years before they officially launched Healthy Heads. And this is then the bringing together of Woolworths and Coles, Toll and Linfox, Cube, Australia Post and Ron Finnemore Transport. So many of them are competitors and don't normally necessarily work together, but in the name of trying to improve mental health across the sector, they came together to found and launch Healthy Heads.
Yeah, wonderful. And I was actually in an industry group before for retail, and I think one thing that's common is that we can compete in all different facets of life, but one thing we should never really compete on is things like safety and protecting people. So yeah, really applaud that that's something that's been uptaken as a collab, and exciting to see what those kind of business groups coming together that can make one pretty impressive brainchild. So very cool. Any immediate thoughts as to the risk factors that are impacting in the sector? Any anecdotal feedback? I know, Naomi, you've worked in the sector for a very long time yourself. What are you sort of seeing there? What's in the winds?
Yeah, so there are some industry-specific risk factors which are detailed in our National Mental Health and Wellbeing Roadmap. So that roadmap was launched in May with the then Deputy Prime Minister, Michael McCormack, and our board. But basically it sets out the risk factors in industry and then sets up an approach, I guess, to address them through 7 workplace strategies. And so some of the risk factors are, I mean, particularly with truck drivers, you've got really long hours, the nature of often shift work and fatigue, isolation if you're driving up to 14 hours a day by yourself or with only one other person. With that, obviously comes the isolation, social disconnect, marriage breakdowns. You also have many cases where truck drivers are first responders to accidents that might have happened. So they'll often be the ones to stop and try to help. So then you've got exposure to potentially traumatic events. And then I think another major factor is stigma, being that it's quite a male and aging workforce. People don't necessarily feel comfortable talking about their feelings or saying that they need to reach out for help. And another key factor is also the number of owner drivers. So we just saw some of those statistics from Amanda around safety, but they make up a huge part of the industry. And if you're working on your own, you've also got, you know, financial pressures, contract to contract, as well as not necessarily having a HR department or knowing where to turn when you need support. So I guess it's the conflation of a number of different factors that are unique to the industry, and not just truck drivers, but shed workers often have similar pressures around the nature of shift work and that kind of thing, which also limits your access to allied health professionals. So yeah, there's a number of different factors, and that's why we developed and launched our roadmap, which is on our website. It's free for download if anyone's interested, but it's basically setting out an approach to addressing these risk factors that's built around prevention, protection and support. You mentioned the Safe Work Australia framework previously, and it's also sort of a drawdown from that.
Yeah, okay. And look, obviously there are some unfortunate statistics that live against mental health and some of those components of industry that you spoke of, you know, aging factors, largely male, you know, male suicide leads out in front of the road toll. You know, they're things that as a community, we really need to work on trying to change that trend. Unfortunately, that trend continues to shift upwards each time we talk about it and present it in psychological awareness trainings that we run for organisations. It's the one thing that people are just absolutely taken back by. They don't realise just how prevalent it is in our community. So talking to some of those, I'll call them occupational wellness factors, what is it that, you know, Healthy Heads and Trucks and Sheds are looking at in terms of that roadmap? What do you see as like key points of implementation or key points of response and action that organisations and people on this call could be doing to try to shift the needle?
So a lot of it's around, I guess, access to better facilities. So if you look at your common truck stop or rest area, they're often pretty lacking. So there's not only a lack in terms of the number of them, but then the facilities that are actually there. So this is something we're working on at the moment and something we talk to NHBR about a lot. So, I mean, you've got things like a lack of, you know, ability to exercise or access healthy food choices, like, you know, what's available at servos a lot of the time. So it's looking to provide ultimately best practice facilities. So maybe there's some exercise equipment, like in parks when you see the sort of circuit set up, healthy food choices, washing machines, shower facilities. So it's looking to improve what's offered to people that literally live their career on the road, and want access to the things that we all sort of take for granted day to day. And this also speaks to one of the major issues, which is around fatigue. And we hear stories about trucks having to be parked at 45-degree angles because there's not enough space, and then the driver can't sleep because they're on an angle. So, I mean, a lot of it, I was going to say a lot of it's basic. It's not necessarily easy to change, but I'm saying that the things we need to lift the bar on are very easy to understand and things that everyone should have access to. But it's, I guess, going to be a process of lobbying various state governments around improving what is made available to drivers. And then I guess also looking at, we talk to some EAP providers that provide services till 11 at night. And there's some companies that are looking to go 24/7 because we're keen to allow, you know, if you're driving for 14 hours during the day, when do you go to the doctor, or when do you get your mental health plan to then get access to a psychologist? And so there's a number of things that we're looking at, but I think rest stops is one of the big ones, and we're also launching an app in the next few weeks. And that's to provide some of the resources and support available, as well as things like stretching exercises designed for shed workers and truck drivers, so for the areas of their body they'd want to target. So yeah, as an extension of the roadmap, we're offering, I guess, resources and support to help extend that for greater reach and to provide sort of easy to action tools and resources that people can pick up and use.
And would that be something that yourselves will look to do through partnership? Obviously, we're seeing a lot of development, and positively, we're seeing development around healthcare and its method of delivery. I think unfortunately it took a pandemic to sort of shake us up a little bit and realise that health doesn't need to be a bricks and mortar business model. It's something that can be delivered through discussion, through things such as these. There are options in like Mosh Australia, where we've got the men's online health clinic. Like, are they things that,
Absolutely. So yeah, we're not a service provider, so it's not to duplicate. Sort of, we're a representative of the transport and logistics industry, but we partner with Beyond Blue, Lifeline, Black Dog Institute, Mental Health First Aid Australia. We've spoken to Blokepedia. So yeah, we're a staff of 3 people, so we're definitely not out there actually doing the face-to-face delivery, but we're really there to take a national holistic approach for the sector and partner with the mental health service providers so that we can then bring that approach back into industry. We can develop resources and then roll them out within industry. So yeah, absolutely working with a number of different partners.
Yeah, perfect. So the strong skill set of bringing people together, and obviously that comes from your foundation of being a collab. What's the invitations in terms of the 100+ participants we have within this call? Like, how can they help Healthy Heads and Trucks and Sheds continue to achieve what it is you're aspiring to achieve?
So I guess it depends on the nature of the organisation they might be in. So we opened up membership at the Brisbane Truck Show in May, and this allows, so for owner drivers or individuals, it's free to join. So I would encourage any individuals that might want to get some of the latest resources and then also be on a list where they get maybe an email every couple of months with updated resources or sources of information they might want to access. So yeah, for individuals or owner drivers, we're really keen to sort of reach out to them because they're the ones that may not have the support services others have. And then for companies, they might look to come on board as an industry partner to work with us and support us in what we're doing. But I think it's also really about increasing awareness. So being a small and new organisation in a massive industry, it's things like this webinar to sort of raise awareness of who we are and what we do, in the hope that maybe people here will spread it also across their organisation or their suppliers or subcontractors, depending on the nature of what their organisation does. But being, not even a year old, a lot of this is about raising awareness of who we are and what's available at no cost to industry around sort of mental and physical health.
Okay, and I may have missed it, but is it an ability that so anyone could, as a company, potentially link up with Healthy Heads and Trucks and Sheds, and whether they're the individual owner driver or they're a company, by and large, they're all able to freely participate?
So individuals, it's free, and then businesses can come on board for $250 to $500 a year, depending on the scale. But that's not to say individuals within a business can also sign up. You just get access to different things. For owner drivers, we developed people leader and workforce handbooks. So this is a flow down of information from the roadmap with easy to action tools and tips. So anyone can go on board and get them. For businesses, there's, I guess, a higher level of information around business rules and organisational guidelines. So just say you're the manager of health and wellbeing at Australia Post, you would benchmark what your organisation is doing against the guidelines, look where there might be gaps, where you might want to move through the maturity model. So it's more of a business approach, but at, I guess, a very affordable level. And that's part of the founding sort of ethos of Healthy Heads, is that although you've got, Lynn Fox and Woolworths funding it, and that through our 7 founding members, they really designed it that Healthy Heads would be accessible to all across industry. So although, we hear the top end of town is sort of leading the charge, that's because they've got the resources and know how to do so. But everything we're developing is to be inclusive and accessible to everyone across industry.
Yeah, perfect. Particularly an industry as diverse as transport and logistics. Not something you want to try and pin down in one particular place. So Great. Look, Naomi, we might park the questions there for the minute, and thank you for indulging me with a few extra questions there.
No worries.
Just a reminder, guys, we're definitely keen to have that chat function starting to populate, seeing it's looking pretty vacant at the moment. As much as I back myself as a facilitator, I'd love to hear some different questions other than my own. But moving on next to Melissa Strong. So Melissa joins us as the Safety, People and Culture Manager at Lindsay's Australia, and equally sits as a director with Nat Roads Australia. So Mel's got an experience as a safety and HR manager within transport for greater than 20 years, without giving away too much, Mel. This tenure is seen Mel take on some really senior positions, including that directorship within the Nat Roads Association, which is really cool. So Mel continues to directly tackle improving things like safety cultures, and probably will be able to talk to a lot of what Amanda was discussing in terms of policy flowing down into practice. And that's really where Mel's going to be talking to us today. So Mel, as a start, do you want to let us know about sort of Lindsay's at the moment, what the current challenges are, and sort of how you're looking to grapple with those?
Great, thanks Alistair, and thanks to Amanda and Naomi for the insights that you've already shared. I think just talking about having that visibility of where the industry currently is, and that information from survey shows that I've seen a lot of changes in the industry, but the results also show that we still have a long way to go. So I think, there's that fine balance of what we've already achieved and what we've put in place, but what else we need to do. In my role at Lindsay's, I've been with the Lindsay Group for just over 13 years. So I've seen a few changes, not just from the industry, but also as businesses mature and expand as well. We have metropolitan and regional and remote areas, so the expanse and complexity of managing staff from a HR and safety and compliance perspective, there's not a silver bullet that applies to everybody. Probably out of our current challenges and areas that are focusing on, from that people side, and we're not on our own in this. It's the retention of staff and that skill shortage that we still face, but it's been an industry problem for quite a while, and also facing that aging workforce. So I think too, from an industry side, there's competition in the environment of competing with companies where there's inconsistent expectations of acceptable behaviour and performance industry-wide. So we find that quite challenging on how we manage staff. So that whole people area is probably our main focus.
Okay. And Mel, probably struggle to pick up a little bit of that sound. I don't know if there's an ability to dial up your microphone at all, but definitely something I picked up there was around some of those staffing challenges, and maybe that we are with an aging workforce, and that sort of next generation of drivers and people in connection industry perhaps through. And that then is making a bit of a challenge, because if you were to look at implementing best practice, potentially that doesn't bode well for maintaining certain staff that have appreciated a way that things were done historically and don't want that change. Is that sort of the underwriting note there?
Oh, absolutely. I think from a resistance to change, a bit of cultural resistance. For example, we have drivers that have been working with us for 30 years. So balancing how you're introducing change with somebody that's been here for 30 years is quite different to somebody coming on board that you're inducting them in all the new policies and procedures, and they're quite accepting of it, to someone that's been here for quite a while and they've seen a lot of change. That approach, you do need something that's really different.
Okay, yeah. All right, well, and that probably nicely dovetails into the next question, being that you are working primarily with demographics that would be touted as higher risk, and that's something that Safe Work Australia directly sort of attention that it's a difficult demographic, in that there are compounding health factors and things like that can implicate what you might try and do from a policy point of view and making safe people at work. what are you seeking to do in terms of leading some of that behavioural change and to help us continue to get past that 60% note that Amanda made reference to in terms of policy versus implementation? What are some of the steps that you've found that have been really effective in leading behavioural change?
I think one of the main things that we have been focusing on over the last few years is adopting technology to improve change and drive efficiency throughout the business, not just from an operational point of view, but also including that people and compliance system side. We've done things that we've introduced monitoring teams across our business so that we can provide real-time information and data so that you can address things, improving how we communicate to staff. And I think having that visibility of that information that you can share with your employees and the teams across the business that sort of helps drive, or it makes people more aware that they might be more susceptible to change. And probably on that note, just from our driving workforce, so we have drivers that age between the ages 21 to the early 70s and everything in between. So when we're looking at driving change or using technology, we need to take a couple of different approaches and be adaptable to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, we've all got our own technology capabilities. You know, I'm probably behind the 8 ball in some respects, I feel like, but yeah, look, I guess that's an interesting question around data and technology, that there's so much out there, and Amanda sort of pointed at some of those technologies that are there. And I guess the challenge is we're in a rapidly evolving environment in terms of technology. And you've got to feel for the legislators and sort of how you would try and keep those things connected. But as a business, what the legislation states versus what's possible, that they're probably still quite far apart, right? So how do you sort of go about leading that as a business case, and how do you sort of share the value of technology internally to create positive change?
That's a very good question, and I think, you know, the power and impact of technology, where it sits with regulation, like technology changing and evolving so quickly, and probably one of the challenges out of that is that there's an increased expectation from partners and customers of wanting visibility of information, and you're navigating individuals that have questions around privacy of information, that they've been doing the same job for 30 years and now there's all this visibility and technology in their vehicles that they feel is questioning their legitimacy of their actual role and what they've been doing. So we've found that we've had to do a number of communication campaigns around different technologies just to alleviate some of those conspiracy theories and what we do. And a lot of it comes back to what Amanda mentioned in that survey was it's about your culture, and it's looking at fostering that positive culture, that it's open to feedback, that you're prepared to listen to what people's concerns are. There's a fine balance of, you know, you need to implement and get performance and improve your performance throughout the business, but at the end of the day, you know, it could be criticism of the individuals of what they're adopting with this technology and what impact it's having on their role.
Yeah, right. Okay. I might pick up on that topic of culture, you know, particularly in Australia at present, where we're going through hosts of lockdowns and varying restrictions. Unfortunately, there probably are elements of subcultures now that are developing in terms of, you know, different states sort of picking fights and doing whatever else. But you're in a national group that's, you know, doing interstate travel and having all those complexities against the C word, being COVID. So what's that been like, and how have you gone about sort of trying to break down maybe some of those restrictions and limitations, and how are you getting that information to your drivers?
Yeah, there's C word that everybody's getting a bit fatigued with. It's, I think from our side, I think we were, I mean, it's challenging for everybody. I think we early on, we established a crisis management team, and I think that was really key for us because it was a way that we could elevate the crisis and things that needed to be done, and it would take away from that operational point, that we could support the business, that we could make those decisions and put some processes and policies in place to support people that are still working. So we're in refrigerated and general freight. So from early on with the panic buying and the resources and allocating of freight, that it was quite frantic. So I think having something like that early on really helped us of how we were navigating. Early on there was no single source of truth, the cross-border challenges, messaging real time. You would have drivers en route somewhere, crossing in 48 hours 3 different borders, and then navigating different border passes and things that are changing, and they're not very, and some of them not very technology savvy. So it caused a lot of angst and anxiety. The way we communicated, we used a number of technology in our vehicles, so we use Sentinel. So being able to message our the drivers and communicate with them in their vehicles. We were able to upload documents as well. So with our Sentinel devices, all the drivers have their COVID safe plans. They've got the containment plans and a whole range of COVID policies for reassurance as well. But if they're pulled up by enforcement, if they've got all that document with them, and those things change, we can send them that information in real time. So we've found that a real benefit.
Yeah, perfect. So the communication strategy and plan it was really pivotal for you, and taking that away from operations that are already dealing with so much by elevating it into like a crisis team, as you say, gave it that project, that extra support and protection, which sounds like it was very much required 18 months ago, as it is still very much required today with changing platforms here, there and everywhere. Look, I think at that point, Mel, we might invite Amanda and Naomi in to join us in a bit more of an open forum. Thank you to those that have been able to send through a couple of questions. I can see one that was actually firstly led straight to yourself, Naomi, in terms of where do we see there being an opportunity for yourselves to work in connection to people like WorkCover, life insurers, directly supporting industry and how things like injury management trends are developing. Do you have any feedback to that?
So that's not a space that we've gone into yet. We work a lot with WorkSafe, particularly in New South Wales, around, I guess, some of the key issues and some of our training programs they've done similar ones, and we've worked with them together, and they actually sit on a few of our working groups. So, but no, we haven't gone into the space of actual rehabilitation claims yet. I know all of our member organisations, it's something that they're dealing with, but I think the Healthy Heads remit is really providing resources to help improve mental health and physical well-being. We've not gone into the space of actual sort of claims. Not saying we never would, but I don't think it's probably what the key focus is at the moment.
Okay, but I'd hazard a guess that there would be utilising like retrospective data pools in terms of like how Safe Work Australia provides us that knowledge around fatality rates, etc. There would be a potential to be in connection to like your work covers, your life insurance agencies, to understand some of the trends some of the
trends and statistics. Yeah, sure. Yep.
And that's something that is currently being done and then you could further look to do within Healthy Heads?
I'm just trying to think. A lot of our data has come through, we obviously look at what NHVR releases and some of the stuff Amanda was speaking to. The Monash Driving Health Study, which they've done with Lynn Fox and the TWU, and it's sort of a 5-year project and it's in one of its final years. So we've gathered a lot of data from that. I'd have to find out. In the 6 months I've been there, it hasn't come across my desk yet, but I know that's what's informing all of our member organisations like Cube and all of that, and they all sit on our working groups and advisory board. So I guess we're hearing what are priorities for industry through our major members, but something I'll look into.
Yeah, you've certainly got some pretty significant representative sample there in the groups that help to what you are. So I understand what you're saying. Amanda, there's a question here in terms of some of the insights provided. One of the questions being that what platforms have been considered for owner drivers to improve their access to safety training and making sure they've got that upskilling available?
Yes, so the NHVR as a regulator, we don't specifically provide training and we don't specifically recommend particular training groups. However, we do partner with other groups. So as you know, we're working with the Healthy Heads group. We're working with other groups, for example, National Transport Insurance, NTI. They have a lot of online products which they're developing to guide people in the industry on how they can improve their safety in areas that they've identified through their own data. So we're working with a lot of partners. We work with the National Road Safety Partnering Program, which has an enormous amount of online webinars, promotes the Vehicles as a Workplace Safety Guide we've produced with Austroads. So the NHVR's approach, where we don't do a lot of the education ourselves, is to provide guidance material, but also to partner with the agencies that can deliver those things. We certainly do encourage uptake of assurance schemes where you can afford to be part of those. You know, working with, say, TruckSafe and those other groups if you're not part of, say, the NHVR's accreditation scheme. So there's some of the ways that we can assist people. There's also the Heavy Vehicle Safety Initiative program where the government has funded safety initiatives brought to us from either industry groups or individuals. Each year, a panel assesses all the proposals for funding. And a number of those are funded. So each year there's a round where people can identify whether they want to develop something and distribute it nationally. And that's a way of having these sorts of training, I suppose bespoke training that's designed specifically by industry for industry can be developed and funded in partnership.
Yeah, fabulous. So a lot of work being done, and I think it's about trying to amalgamate all the various channels that are available to come up with something that's, you know, consistent and clear and available to people. One last question, which is a bit of a double-pronged question. So, and I think it's something that I'd like to hear from all of you guys on in terms of how this question plays out. So the first one being, what happens in terms of time pressure with regards to varying delivery schedules for drivers and that there being a lack of industry driver knowledge that is being passed down, you know, generation to generation or driver to driver. So that's one part of the question, and it dovetails kind of into the final bit being, is there any plan or discussion that's currently being held, you know, nationally around that gap between young drivers wanting to come in and engage in the industry, acknowledging that is, you know, a bit of a concern long term, particularly given the way that we're talking about workforce demographics. So I don't know who wants to jump in first. Maybe Mel, if you want to talk to practical experience around some of driver delivery schedules, passing on knowledge, and then that next generation, what's being done.
Well, okay, thank you. Yeah, the delivery schedule, you know, it's very broad, changes a lot. I think, you know, communication comes down to it. And I think too, for long-term people in the industry and that feeling of pressure, there's the balance of what they feel is the unwritten rules, that it's taking pride in their job and thinking that they need to do what needs to be done because that's what they've always done. So it's actually accepting that change and understanding, you know, compliance, and this is what we need to abide by, and also having that trust that if there is an issue from a customer or from a provider somewhere that they are feeling pressured, that they can actually elevate and escalate that query and concern with their operational team and the business so that they can address it in the right way. I think sometimes passing that messaging on without fear of repercussion is something that is probably quite broad wide. So I think it's that clear, comes back to communication. I think trust is important, and it's also the you know, when you're delivering freight, when COVID's managed to put a lot of things in perspective, I think, for everybody. And, you know, at the end of the day, it's, you know, where no one's life or anyone's safety is worth risking something that they can wait an hour or 2 hours. So I think it's how, as businesses, that standard and communicate to their customers comes down to what those expectations are early on. I think for drivers entering the industry, it's a lot of the industry associations, Net Road included, were put submissions to government. Part of the challenge is truck driving isn't recognised as a profession. So there's no trade, there's no formal recognition of driving as a profession. And I think that's that first step, that once we can do that, we can then develop training programs or apprenticeships that we can attract people that they feel that they're getting into a stable and sustainable career. But first we need to give that recognition to the drivers from what they do professionally.
Okay. Yep. And look, I think there's a definite need to elevate the acknowledgement of the requirement and the skill involved in doing the work that is being done. And like I said, it definitely is the glue that holds our nation together in a lot of respects by moving those essential goods around. And there is a subsequent question that comes in here, which I think is a good one from Louis, that's around, you know, is there a clarification around what constitutes training? Because I think, Amanda, to come back to your point, and, you know, anecdotal information being passed down from driver to driver, delivery schedules, you know, young drivers coming engagement. Do we have a clear acknowledgement of what that training is and what that training capacity should be stipulated to? Is that something you could maybe share some thoughts on?
Yes, firstly, I agree with Melissa about the concerns and the things she's mentioned there. In terms of training for drivers, there's, yes, it's not really clear. That you're quite right. A safety management system is tailored and scalable to your own business and to the task you're undertaking, which is why identifying roles and responsibilities is important first, so that they have the right training for the right people. And yes, toolbox talks are a form of training. They're a part of that safety culture, and there should be two-way conversations as well. So training isn't just about one person telling everybody else what needs to be done. It's about a two-way conversation and about problem solving as well. And I think safety alerts, I see written in the question there, safety alerts might form part of a toolbox talk, as a, you know, as a, here's a safety alert, here's something we need to do, and this is how we're going to address it. So formal training and informal training is part of it. I do want to draw attention to, there is an Austroads project at the moment. If anyone wants to look at the Austroads website, where there's a driver competency framework being developed. So a heavy vehicle driver competency framework, which will start to address and more formally look at the elements of competency required into the future. So I think that's a really positive step. Yeah, that's probably some of the areas that we're working in as a regulator.
Perfect. Naomi, I might invite you to tie off on that particular question. Obviously, Healthy Heads would have a few different things that you're looking at around things like, you know, occupational pressures of like delivery schedules, knowledge transfer, and the co-contributing to mental health, and equally trying to invite younger participants to industry. If you wanted to provide some insights there.
Sorry, there's a lot in that. There's like, I've read some of the comments and that. So I think the demographic, so that's not something that we've done a lot on, but I know I was just thinking as Amanda was talking, that at Brisbane Truck Show, the Australian Trucking Association were promoting their like Future Leaders program, and it was definitely trying to work with really diverse groups and I guess younger age groups to get people interested and involved in industry. But I haven't been in the industry long enough to have a strong view on it, but it's definitely, it will hit a crisis at some point as a lot of the knowledge leaves with that sort of that age group that will look to retire in the next few years. And from my experience in the rail industry, I was mentioning before this started to you, Alistair, that I had about 10 years working for a not-for-profit in rail that worked a lot with the peak body, the Australasian Railway Association. And that was also it's also, I think all industries might be in a similar position, but it was a major, I guess, problem in rail too. So there were lots of sort of proactive industry programs to try to engage particularly women and particularly younger people and engineers in particular to sort of come and join. So I guess, yeah, we've not done anything specific on that. The ATA has though, and it's probably something we'll all need to be cognizant of going forward.
Yeah, perfect. That answered it well. Give yourself need to give yourself more of a wrap, I think. Certainly not going to be able to answer it, but I think you did well. Guys, that is time. I know people are going to have to get away in the current climate where we've all got back to back online meetings. There's just a note there that if there are any questions that you felt that weren't fully answered, or you have further questions, all the participants have been agreeing to answering questions hereafter. So if you want to send any questions through to me, I can link up with Amanda, Naomi, Mel, make sure that your answers are facilitated. But equally, we will send around some more information so that you've got access to additional materials. I know Amanda's already provided those. Naomi can share things like the roadmap, and Mel, if there's anything coming out of Nat Roads or anything particular that you're keen to share from Lindsay's perspective, we'd love to see it. And look, the plan is going forward with this forum is we want to keep talking. I think we're definitely not going to cover it all in an hour. So keep an eye out for us continuing to build on this conversation, and certainly appreciate everyone being involved thus far. Thank you so much to our speaking panel. Couldn't have done it without you. Really well done. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.